Welcome to the Leaders in Life Sciences podcast, powered by Enter Life Sciences Consulting. In this podcast, you'll hear from leaders in the life sciences industry, how they grew into their current roles, the lessons they learned along the way, and advice for those aspiring to follow in their footsteps. I am the host. My name is Mike Verletic, and I'm the CEO of Enter Life Sciences Consulting. At Enter, we help leaders orchestrate the positive change they want to see in their organization. Are you ready to be recognized for your leadership success? Take a listen. Okay, welcome to the Leaders in Life Sciences podcast. My name is Mike Verletic. I'm the president and CEO of Enter Life Sciences Consulting, and I'm excited to be here today. We're really looking forward to speaking with our guest. First, though, I want to introduce our co-host, Courtney Boudreau. Welcome, Courtney.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, it looks like we have a second co-host today, Josie Wong, also from Enter. Welcome, Josie. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to be here as well.
Cool. Well, hey, what's been going on with you guys lately? Anything exciting?
Everything's been same old with me. I'm managing the zoo. I've got 2 cats and a dog running around, so it's quite the menagerie. But yeah, everything's been going well. How about you, Mike?
Things have been pretty good. I've been trying to pick up on some reading lately. I've got this book right here just to, I know we're not on video, but this book called Atomic Habits. Have you guys heard of this book?
I've heard of it. I have not read it though.
Yeah, I've barely started reading it. I have heard of it as well. And I understand the point that this habits really create your future. So I'm really trying to focus on that, creating some good habits and establishing, just one little one that'll take me one step further. So I'll be sure to tell you about it in a future episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know how to establish bad habits, but good ones are something new. So yeah,
I know plenty of bad ones. I can get going really fast. So, how about you, Josie? What's going on your end?
I actually just got 3 new foster kitties.
Gosh,
they're all hiding in the bathroom. Speaking of habit, I've been sticking to a very strict routine: 8 a.m. feeding, 5 p.m. feeding, 12 p.m. cuddle time, and then 10 p.m. play and cuddle time. So trying to be very strict about that just so they know what to expect and form those good associations with people. But I'm really excited. It's our first foster in a couple years. So
wow.
Yeah, they make a mess, but it's beautiful.
You and Courtney, we really do have we have a virtual zoo here. I think that's a good word for it.
I've got one he's crawled inside a box and he's now dragging the box across the floor, and he's about to need to be rescued from me, Josie. So if you want to come rescue Willie, you might need it.
For those on the line, Josie is a pro at rescuing cats. So
yeah.
Sure. I think you'll find some words about her story on our LinkedIn page, I believe. So,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we have a lot of time to catch up on the animal follies in the future, but right now I want to shift to our guest. I'm really excited today to have Valerie Brown on our show. Valerie is the Senior Vice President of Quality Assurance in Pharmaceutical Development and Manufacturing at Gilead Sciences. She leads a global team that is responsible for quality and compliance oversight of contract manufacturers producing active pharmaceutical ingredients, drug product intermediates, oral solid dosage forms, parenterals, biologics, and medical devices, pretty much everything, right, Valerie? For worldwide development and commercial markets. She joined Gilead in 2010 as a Director of Commercial API Quality, and Valerie was promoted to Senior Director of Quality in 2013, responsible for all commercial products, including APIs, finished dosage forms, and devices. She was promoted to Vice President of Quality in 2018, and in 2020, Valerie was elevated to her current role as the Senior Vice President of Global Quality Assurance. Prior to joining Gilead, Valerie was the Global Director of Quality and Regulatory for ZAC Systems and PPG Industries. She is a member of the Parenteral Drug Association and the International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering. Valerie holds an undergraduate degree in biology and chemistry and a graduate degree in healthcare management. Please join me in welcoming Valerie Brown to the show. Welcome, Valerie.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. Thanks for that intro. And it was really great to hear about the animal menagerie with Josie and Courtney. So that's fantastic. I don't have any pets, so
Nope.
I can't relate to that, but that's great.
Sounds like we've got a few that we could loan you if you need.
Yeah, like I was just saying, if someone come rescue my cat from me.
I have 3 in the bathroom ready for homes.
Oh, I'm good.
I'm with you, Valerie. I'm with you. So Valerie, let's get it started. Tell us a little bit about just a little background. How did you get to the point in your career where you're heading quality for Gilead?
Oh, it's very, very interesting. Thanks for the question, Mike. I started my career in the laboratory. I've always been more of very interested in the sciences, like I guess, maybe a science geek, if you will. So I started in the lab. I always wanted to be in the lab. I wanted to move into manufacturing, and because I always wanted to be able to make things, and it's very interesting in synthesis and formulations. My first job was in the laboratory, and we were doing a lot of analysis for pharmaceutical, as well as with the National Institutes of Health, with Walter Reed Hospital and George Washington Hospital. I was in the Washington, D.C. area at the time. And since we were a laboratory doing some diagnostic testing for pharma companies, we were subjected to FDA inspections. And as a person right out of undergrad, I don't know anything about the FDA. I heard of them. I had interactions with our quality unit, which wasn't very pleasant many times, but they asked me to be the scribe for the inspection. And I said, oh, scribe, that means I just have to write things down. And they said, oh, yeah, that's all, that's it. So the day of the inspection, when the investigators arrived, the young lady who was going to host the inspection became very ill. So the department head said, okay, kids, you're up. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do I need to do? So that was let's talk about trial by fire. That was my first foray into hosting an inspection and understanding, how to look under the hood in terms of some of the quality and compliance areas and deficiencies. So, we did get a 483. We responded. Of course, that became my responsibility. And then I got a really good view in terms of what quality really does. You're not the police. You really have to partner with folks. So I continued my career in the laboratory. Then I was recruited to a small pharmaceutical company in Pennsylvania. And then after that, I was recruited to a contract manufacturing organization in Texas, which is like a planet of its own. It's like a whole nother country. And it was nice. I got a lot of experience. They had a plant in France. I spent, several years there working with that facility, as well as the one in Texas. In France is when I met the Gilead team, because some of their key products that they had very early on were being manufactured by our facility. We did a lot of fine chemical manufacturing, which is APIs for large pharma companies. And then, Gilead, after that, started calling me about every year, a few times, asking me if I wanted to join their company. And at that time, I just moved from Pennsylvania, where it was, cold and ice and snow, and I moved to Houston, Texas. And even though I spent a lot of time in France, it was like no snow, no winter. I was like, nah. And the cost of living was certainly a lot less than California. I didn't do that, but then the organization went under some business turnovers in terms of we were with PPG, then we were with Zack Systems. And then Zack Systems decided that they didn't really want to do business in the States. They asked me to become a consultant and travel back and forth between France and Italy and the US. And at the same time, Gilead called again and said, hey, what are you doing? Why don't you come and think about joining us? And so I did in 2010. It's been a great journey. I knew a little bit about the company at that time. I was very impressed with their passion, with the innovation that they do in terms of drugs. So it was really great. It's really good to be a part of all of that, and then to get to see it in action on a day-to-day basis. So that's how I ended up there. I ended up in my first role, as you said, was managing commercial APIs. So looking at all the outsourced APIs that went into our formulated products.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I didn't realize all the connections there, but that's quite the path. And especially with the international experience and to think that you met the Gilead team in a whole other country. So
exactly. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Pretty fun. What was it like? Because PPG is more chemicals focused, is that right? What was it like kind of going from, the chemicals focus to the pharma focus?
It's like you're really on the other side of the table. So, PPG is Pittsburgh Paint and Glass. And PPG decided, they really wanted to be like a premier coating company and really didn't want to be totally involved in fine chemistry with pharmaceuticals, because pharmaceuticals, it takes a while to get pharmaceuticals to market, right? If you're building a plant to make caustic, you turn the last screw on the vessel and you're making money. That's not the way it is in pharmaceuticals. You have, clinical phases you go through, you're developing your product and it could take years to come to market. So it was a little bit different. You're still working with a lot of pharma companies as a contract manufacturer to help them with whatever phase that they're in, whether they're in, they're in the IND phase and phase 1, phase 2, going towards, commercialization and an NDA or BLA filing. So it's a little bit different. It's like being on the other side of the table. People think of pharma, if pharma has deep pockets. If you're on the CMO side, you razor thin margins, every gram of product counts. So it was a good experience. And it was good to be able to see how you can, have many, many customers. Of course, like I said, a lot of big pharma customers. Everybody wants something different, but you have to understand and make them understand that I have to follow the regulations. So even if you want something different for your product, you really aren't that different. You have to follow the law.
That's great. I love that analogy. Yeah, as a CMO, you're serving multiple different companies and you got to accommodate all your different requests. Now you're on the other side, right? You're one large company working, I'm presuming, with multiple CMOs out there, and you're trying to navigate the opposite side of that. Do you see did that prepare you, I think, for coming into your role now where you have to manage the requirements or the other direction?
It did. I got a little bit of that when I worked for a small biotech biopharma in Pennsylvania. But you really come to the realization that it has to be a partnership. It's not like, here's my process, and bring me back a product. That you really have to partner with the CMO in order to work together to bring that product to market. So it definitely has to be a partnership, one built on trust and certainly support. And basically, shared decision making. But in the end, of course, as the labeler or the person who's responsible, the sponsor company is responsible. But you definitely want to have that, that partnership. If not, it's not a very good relationship. It's not a very good working relationship.
Makes sense. I want to shift gears a little bit, maybe ask you about, as you progress through this. So clearly it sounds like Gilead had an eye on you kind of for a little while. But along the way, there's probably a lot of people that you interfaced with that you saw as leaders that you maybe either were mentored by or you sought to kind of emulate in your career. Is anybody stand out that you would say, hey, this is somebody that helped me in my journey?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's a few people. On the personal side, I would say my grandmother. My grandmother was definitely someone who had some very keen, very strong leadership qualities. I mean, she had 12 kids. A lot of grandkids, a husband, lots of siblings. And she really just was, just the powerhouse or the force of the family. In high school, I had a high school science teacher who just was very instrumental in helping me see, he made everything really, inspiring. Like the science can be boring to some people, but he was one of those individuals who was really encouraging and, giving you the freedom to kind of think outside the box in terms of some of the experiments that we were doing. But in the business world, like I said, I come right out of undergrad, working in a laboratory. They usually pair you up with someone to kind of help train you and kind of onboard you. And they pair me up with what they considered was the grouchiest, meanest person that they had in the lab. And he was an older gentleman. And, and I'm just a bright-eyed, person, ready to work and ready to do whatever. And the first few encounters were like, whoa. But he taught me a lot of things, like not to be, trust, but verify. You see, because he used to always say this saying that I saw in a book years later that say, in God we trust, for all others bring data. And that was his mantra. But he was also someone who sort of motivated the team. He motivated people to sort of, get in line with what the vision was and what the goals are, and making sure that we were all aligned with that. And I saw that as something really powerful. So and these weren't people that reported to him. This was just a way that he projected his persona. It's like, here's what our goals are. And he would inspire and motivate us to say, okay, yes, this is what we need to do. So I learned that leadership is not so much about trying to tell people what to do, but it is being able to communicate thoroughly what needs to be done, how we can do it, why we're doing it. And then that of itself inspires and motivates people to get in line with it.
That's great.
I'm sure wherever he is now, he's probably still really grouchy and
yeah, probably so.
So I've noticed you had a rather rapid ascension through Gilead from the time you started there. And I was wondering, from somebody who's a bit earlier in their career, what characteristics would you attribute to that? And how did you do it?
Wow, that's a great question, Courtney. And it's funny you say that because it didn't seem rapid to me, but okay. And one of the things I would say is to learn as much as you can, not just to stay in your own little area, but to learn about, what are all the other functions doing and how does what you do impact on that? And when I say that, I work within pharmaceutical development and manufacturing, and that's a huge organization in and of itself. I mean, it's 20% of Gilead today. But there are also other functions. You've got, regulatory, you have legal, you have medical affairs, you have development ops and clin ops, all of that, human resources, project management. Just a myriad of things in the pharma world. And just being able to sort of talk to people, learn about what they're doing, understanding how can I be more impactful in terms of what they're doing. And then understanding that whatever I do may, impact what happens as an outcome. So I would encourage people to always just be curious, be intellectually curious in terms of what you're doing in your role. And then just to kind of, venture out, raise your hand for those special projects. Even if not something within your wheelhouse, do something different and just be able to, like I say, just gain more skill sets and put more tools in your toolkit. It's not so much that it may not manifest itself into you moving up the ladder, but it definitely gives you, more breadth and depth of experience and knowledge, and definitely gives you a little bit more insight in terms of what do I want to do? When I joined Gilead as the director for commercial APIs, that in and of itself is a huge job. We got several contractors globally that are manufacturing active pharmaceutical ingredients for us. So you've got to provide quality oversight for them. They have inspections. You're helping them prep for inspections. You're helping them with the responses. And then I was really curious, well, how does this all start? It starts, in discovery of the molecule, coming from discovery to development as it develops through our process. But then it goes into a final dosage form, whether it's a pill or tablet, and that becomes much more fascinating. Then you understand about all the clinical aspects. These are drugs that are being tried in clinical trials with people and getting those readouts and things like that. And then there are lots of conferences that are held for different therapeutic areas like virology, inflammation, oncology. So it's just having that intellectual curiosity, I think, is key.
Yeah, thank you. That makes a lot of sense, because I was also going to ask you about the educational opportunities that you found along the way. So it seems like volunteering for the extra project, and as you mentioned, being able to step out of the box or step out of your comfort zone, I should say, has been really pivotal in your success. So
yeah, I always like to say, Courtney, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In fact, that was something my first mentor had said to me, because like I said, he was kind of a curmudgeon, but I just told him one day, I said, you really make me uncomfortable. He said, well, get used to it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. Just to kind of carry that theme a little bit further, I know at Gilead, obviously, the organization is probably quite large, and you have to rely on a lot of people to succeed overall, right? And what's your thought in terms of from the most junior employee to the most senior? How do you get the best out of them in terms of letting them know what their contribution is?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. A few years ago, we got a new CEO, Dan O'Day. And one of the things that Dan said at his first communication to the organization was that every employee deserves a great leader. Didn't say great manager, didn't say great supervisor, say great leader. And I take that to heart. And the other thing too, in terms of being able to get, like I say, throughout the organization, we're all leaders. We all lead from where we are. It doesn't matter what your level is, whether you're a very junior person or a very senior person, we're all leaders, and we have an obligation to do the things like, listen actively, explaining the why. It's not so much giving people direction, but, telling them why they're doing that. And certainly making time for people to sort of, voice their opinion and provide them a psychologically safe space to do so. And that's one of the things that I always want to, impart within my organization, and the leaders of my organization certainly do. Like I said, everyone's a leader. We're all leaders, but we all have that obligation. And I think that's what gives people, some of the, if you will, especially the more junior staff who may be a little bit more intimidated in terms of speaking up or speaking out loud. But if you give them that space, and believe me, I get challenged all the time by folks. It doesn't matter. The title doesn't matter. None of that matters. We're all people. And I think we all learn that way. So giving people that freedom to, certainly, first of all, bring their authentic self to work, but also be able to challenge the status quo. Why are we doing it this way? Or I've seen it done another way, or I have another idea. And we always want to encourage that.
That's great. I'm getting so many great nuggets from you, Valerie. I really appreciate all your insights here. I think some of the things that you learn along the way and just hearing it from others and even your thoughts from the comments from Daniel, it's just great kind of insights into how Gilead as an organization is run, how you run your organization. I think it's great to see. Did you take any of those cues from people along the way, perhaps elsewhere early in your career, that you saw a way that you didn't want to run your organization? For example, like, hey, somebody did this, I'm not doing that. So
yeah, when we talk about leaders and leadership, there's a lot of things that come to mind. And like I said, for me, is to be more inspiring, communicative, and certainly motivating. I've seen where leaders are more authoritarians. So when I say that, I've seen leaders that really sort of are like dictators. They kind of just tell people what they need to do, and people follow them out of fear, not because they are good leaders. It's because they feel like they have to. And that's something that I've always said that I didn't want to do. I don't want to be that person that, I don't want my name weaponized. I don't want me to be weaponized that, if I don't do this, she's going to she's going to get rid of me or whatever. I just want people to feel, like I say, the freedom that they can speak up, that they can share their opinions, they can share their ideas, and then be motivated and inspired by the goals. And that's my job, being able to communicate it thoroughly, to communicate, what it is, what are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? And then how are we going to do it, and do that together? It's not like, I can't just make the decisions. If you give people the option to certainly weigh in, you got more buy-in, and they're going to be more apt to sort of follow that lead. But I think that's one of the things I've seen, over the years with leaders, is that they strike a fear in folks, and that's not leadership.
Yeah, there was a saying about being a boss versus being a leader. And then being a leader, you're part of the team, whereas a boss, you are separating yourself from your actual team. So
absolutely, you're absolutely right, Josie. That's a very good way to put it. Anybody can be a boss.
yeah.
I have a 15-year-old. She's the boss of me. But to be a leader, it takes some humbling, and you always want to try to be in the service of others, right? I'm here to help you. I'm here to serve. I'm not here to just dictate what to do.
You got a 15-year-old as well. So
they're fun, aren't they?
They are a lot of fun, but yeah, they are a lot of work. As you
know, I might come get the cat and trade you, Courtney.
No, I might have to respectfully decline, because I was a 15-year-old, and
I know.
I admire you guys as parents, because it takes good parents to raise good people.
Hey, Courtney, a lot of our clients we work with have great ideas on how to improve their business, but they just run into challenges that seem to get in the way of accomplishing their goals. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, of course. It happens all the time. I've seen clients struggle with a lack of visibility into all the work that's happening within their organization. I've seen clients that are focused on manual tasks, which takes away from focusing on the actual project work. And I've seen leadership struggle to make decisions due to lack of timely information.
That's so true. It seems like just knowing the problems to fix is only half the battle. How'd you help your clients address those challenges?
Well, we of course first work with our client to design a structured management process that fits their culture and team. And in a lot of situations, we bring in tools like Smartsheet to help the entire project team be more efficient. With the help of Smartsheet, we were able to create dashboards, automate routine tasks, and have the information ready in real time to help support leadership's decision-making.
Wow, it sounds like you not only execute on the project, but your work helps everyone get more done with less work.
I hope so. Smartsheet is a powerful tool, and my clients seem to be really happy with it.
That's great. Now, if somebody needs help on their project, what should they do?
They should check out nra.com and schedule a call with us to see how we can help.
Sounds like a great idea.
Well, thank you.
You touched on something, Valerie, a little bit earlier about psychological safety in meetings and being able to speak up. So what advice would you give to somebody who may have made a mistake at work, or, because mistakes are critical in the pharmaceutical industry, but also responding to them is equally as important. So what advice would you give to somebody who may not have done something perfectly?
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's the one thing, a lot of us in the industry get tripped up on is I always call it, perfection over excellence. I would rather you be excellent in what you do instead of trying to strive for perfectionism. And if you make a mistake, I mean, you own up to the mistake and then, let's learn from it. What do we learn from this? How do we move forward? And focus on the issue, whatever that was, not on the person. And I think that, you really want to try to, like I say, separate that from the individual. And you're right. In the pharma industry, yeah, mistakes are going to be made. That's how we learn. I mean, if you don't make a mistake, I don't think you're trying. You're not trying very hard. But you want people to know that, the world's not going to end because you made a mistake. Let's just pick ourselves up and dissect it and understand, where do we go from here? What do we do to, move forward, but then also learn from it so that we don't repeat it, right? So, like I said, that's the whole nature of how everything's done. Many of the great innovations and inventions, came from mistakes that people made eventually. Thousands and thousands until they got it to where they needed it to be.
Well, thank you. I think it's, it's good to keep in mind that continuous improvement spirit, and that's where mistakes play their role is, you can't continuously improve if there's nothing, that you notice needs to be improved. And I think that's great advice.
Absolutely. The one thing I always say, if because we do a lot of outsourcing and we visit a lot of contract manufacturers, if I visit a site and they say, oh, we have, 0% deviations, like that's a huge red flag for me. It's like, there's no way, and you, because that means that, you're looking at something in a very perfectionist sort of way. And even the regulators look at that too. It's like if they come in and you say, well, no, we didn't have any deviations. Oh no, we don't have any, we didn't make any changes. They're like, that's a huge red flag for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I love to hear that. The thought of that, mistakes are you don't necessarily try to make mistakes, but mistakes happen and we try to learn from them and don't repeat them. I love that context and applying that to a situation. I want to make one side note, like my daughter, 15-year-old daughter, she's amazing. So I want to make sure I put that plug in. So if one day she does listen to this.
Oh yeah. I have a 15-year-old daughter too. And I doubt if she'll ever listen to this, but she's amazing as well.
She's done way more in her life than I think I accomplished anywhere near that age in my life. So
yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, Mike? I mean, they have so much more at their fingertips than we do.
Oh yeah. Just the drive and motivation that I see from her is just truly unbelievable. So
yeah.
Sorry for the little detour. So getting back to it, one question I've always wondered, Gilead's a very big company, very big organization, global products around the world, products that help people in all corners of the globe. How do you keep that all in context? There's a lot going on, right? Like how do you manage all that?
There is a lot going on. There's always a lot going on. You're absolutely right. It's very humbling too, to know. And, when you're in the throes of it, when you're, manufacturing products or you're in an inspection or you're conferring with someone in another part of the organization about an issue, it doesn't dawn on you, how huge this is until we have many testimonials from patients that write in to say, how our products have made a difference to them and they're life-saving and that sort of thing. And then it just makes you understand that this is why I'm here. This is why I come to work every day. You want to make sure that, you're providing key therapies to patients in need. And there is a lot going on. But, one of the things that we're looking at, that we look at in Gilead, and this is at the direction of the leadership team led by the CEO, is look at everything from an enterprise perspective, not just in your own little box, in your own little world, but look at it, all across the enterprise. You can think, people think, oh, the United States or North America, but we have, South America, there's Asia. We provide patients, access to products, to patients in much needed countries. It's incredibly rewarding to hear that. But when you're, like I said, when you're in the throes of it, in fact, I've got a meeting to go to after this, that's probably going to down my day. It's worth it in the end when you see, the difference that you're making in the lives of patients. And it's, like I said, it's very humbling. And as leaders, you just feel like, like I said, it's just, you want to serve, you want to be able to provide that to the individuals and quality. That's really important to make sure that it's of the highest quality. It meets all the standards and certainly meets the regulations that are imposed upon it.
That's great. I think, I imagine it just gives you a great motivation each day, right? Like to know what the products that Gilead produces are doing in terms of the good that they produce out there. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
great to hear.
Yeah, Valerie, I know that you mentioned your grandma previously being a strong example for leadership for you. My question is, in lieu of Women's History Month, is there another woman you want to highlight as a great leader?
There's so many, to be honest with you. But, I think I'll just keep it close to home and talk about, the leader of PDM, who is Tyann Yang. I mean, she's a very, very humble individual, but just a very accomplished individual. She's been at Gilead for almost 30 years. And she was very instrumental in a lot of these therapies coming to market, like the fixed dose combinations, combining 2, 3, 4 actives together to be much more effective, especially in the HIV therapies. And she was just honored with an award into, I think, the National Academy of Engineering. So she's and she's very, very demure, very quiet, very silent, strong type. But and leads, like I said, by inspiring and motivating and giving you the freedom to explore and to try new things and to be innovative. So I think that's another leader that I definitely admire quite a bit. There's a lot of them that I've met.
I'm sure.
That's great. I really appreciate the insights there. We are getting close to our time here, so I want to kind of get moving to our next segment. But one last question, Valerie, and maybe it's more of a fill in the blank. It's like a thought around leaders that you admired, and maybe just to fill in the blank. Okay, the leaders that I admired most did what? Like, what were some of the key characteristics that you were left with?
The leaders that I admire most listen. Listen to understand. Yeah, you hear some, you see some leaders that they seem like they're listening to you, but they're just waiting for their turn to talk. But then, there are other leaders that I've encountered that really listen actively, ask some very pointed questions, and then you can certainly have that discussion and get out of that conversation what you need. But I think if they listen, and I really admire leaders who communicate up, down, and across the organizations and make it clear to everyone, what the goals are and where we're going. So I guess those are the two things. If I had to fill in the blank, I would say listen and communicate effectively.
That's great. I love that. All right. So we are going to move on to our next segment here. And as has become a tradition, we'll have a little game and then we're going to do some of our key takeaways. As I mentioned earlier, I've got a whole sheet full of things, so I am not going to be lacking for anything to talk about here. But first, let's jump into our game. And as a little surprise, I'm going to lead this one this time. So, Valerie, if you're able to stick around for this one.
Oh, I am. I'm going to
get you involved here too. Let's talk about what we're going to do here. So we're going to do a little Gilead trivia. So if the internet is correct, I will have all the correct answers, but we'll see if you guys do. So
do I get to play too, or do I just?
Yeah, you get to play too. And so I'm gonna make you go last on these, Valerie, because you might have a lot of these answers.
I may not though.
Yeah. So. And no fair using the internet, no Googling right now. So
I was just going to ask if I was.
No, I was about to pull up a window.
Yeah, it's like Wordle. They're using Google to.
Yeah, it's a multiple choice, so we'll go with that. I tried to make them hard, Valerie. So, but I don't. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. First question: when was Gilead founded? And so I've got 4 options for you. A is 2001. B is 1987, C is 1945, or D is none of the above.
Oh, you have to throw in D.
I know. A little curveball there. What do you guys think? Courtney, I'll let you go first.
I'm going to say 87.
Okay.
We'll go with.
That's my guess as well.
All right. How about you, Valerie?
It's 87.
We'll see. We'll reveal the answers here in just a moment. But we have the expert there. All right. Okay. Next question. Michael Reardon is the founder of Gilead. How old was he when he started the company? Answer A, 19. He was really a prodigy. Answer B, 24. Answer C, 29. Answer D, 59.
I really hope it's 59 because if it's any of the other ones, I'm just going to pack it up and go home. Just kidding. I choose 59.
All right. How about you, Josie?
Try to be different and say C, whatever that was. 29.
Okay. How about you, Valerie?
I'm going to, I never met Michael Reardon, so I'm going to say 29 too, because I heard he was a prodigy, but I didn't think he was that young, but I don't know. I know he's young, but not that young.
All right. We'll go Josie and Valerie at 29 and Courtney at 59. Okay. Question 3. This one is a little bit more involved here. Where did the name Gilead come from? A, it was the name of a Star Wars character favored by the founder. B, it was the name of the region in the Middle East where the first genuine pharmaceutical product was thought to have come from. C, it was a combination of initials from the founder's childhood friends. Or D, it was the name suggested by the primary venture capitalist funding the company.
Wow.
I'm going to say B because Gilead, that's a lot of friends acronym. So I'm going to say B. That's not too many, but that's more than what I have. I only have a very close circle.
I agree with Josie. I think that sounds like the most plausible answer. I would really hope it's not D, but
what was B again, Michael?
B was, it was the name of the region in the Middle East where the first genuine pharmaceutical product was thought to have come from.
And the first one was?
It was the name of a Star Wars character favored by the founder.
Okay. I'm going to go with B too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of you are going with B. Okay. The last question. Question 4. What was Gilead's first product to hit the market? And again, I hope the internet was right here. So is it A, Vistide, B, Viriad, C, Remdesivir, or D, Gilzimavir?
Valerie looks like she knows.
I better.
I'm going to say D. I think it's an antiviral, but not remdesivir.
Okay.
So.
That's you, Josie.
Yeah, I feel like it's not C as well because I feel like that's a little bit more current, but I don't know. I'll just go with B just to be different.
Okay. And how about for the final answer from Valerie?
I'm going to go with A.
A.
Decide, yeah.
All right. See, she could pronounce it correctly too. I didn't get to pronounce it correctly. All right, that was awesome. Okay, let's go through these real quick. When was Gilead founded? The answer is B, 1987. Everybody got that one correct. So 5 points for everybody. Second question, Michael Reardon, the founder of Gilead, founded the company at the age of 29.
Oh, good.
So, Josie and Valerie. Courtney, I agree with you. 29 is pretty young. So
Yeah.
I guess I was 30 when I founded Entere. How about that? So,
Well, you're right up there with them. You're right there.
Right.
I've got 2 years to catch up. So that's enough time. I'll come up with something.
My time has passed.
All right. This was my favorite question to research about the name of where Gilead came from. So you are all correct. It was named after this region in the Middle East where the first genuine pharmaceutical product was, I guess, deemed to have come from. And I think it was called the Balm of Gilead. It was the Gilead region. So
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So that was really fun. I had to come up with some really good secondary answers because I just had to come up with something that maybe sounded real. So
When you talked about the Middle East, that kind of threw me off because I knew about, I know about the Balm of Gilead and everything. I'm like,
yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I had to come up with I was going to say his college roommate's initials, but then that would have thrown off my previous question if you guys thought maybe he was 19. But so anyhow. All right. These are all coordinated, you see. All right. The last question, which was Gilead's first product? And I want to first congratulate myself for coming up with a fake product that somebody picked. So,
It was me.
Gilzimavir. I thought for sure if I just put Gil on the beginning of one of these names, maybe somebody would pick it. So
I think it was the last part, which was it's just standard. So I was like, oh yeah, antiviral. Let's
That's right.
exactly. It sounds legit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I should go into the pharmaceutical product naming business, I think.
Yeah.
So the actual answer was, how do you pronounce it, Valerie?
Vistide.
So, and that was in the
Megavirus.
mid, I think 95, 96, somewhere in there. The other one that I didn't get to work into this was Tamiflu was discovered by Gilead as well, even though now it's, I think Roche markets it, right? Roche and
Right.
I always thought that was fascinating, how the world
I'm
works.
glad I got that one right because, we used to manufacture that active.
That's
That
great.
would not
So
been a good
Valerie,
thing.
4 of 4, Valerie, you've passed with flying colors.
Oh,
So
good. I would be ashamed. I wouldn't be able to go back to work if I didn't.
that's right. We would have had to dub the recording. So, all right. So, hey, let's move on. We got a few more minutes left. Let's move on to talk about some of our key takeaways. Who wants to go first? Josie, Courtney?
Yeah, I can go first. The key takeaway that I really got from Valerie is to keep learning, to keep growing, and to be able to see the bigger picture. And those qualities are what makes a good leader.
Great. Awesome. How about you, Courtney?
Yeah, I think what Valerie mentioned about leaders listen to understand and not listen to respond is absolutely critical. And I think it's excellent advice. And then also what Valerie was mentioning about stepping out of your comfort zone. I think it's excellent feedback because, that's how you develop and grow and make yourself a well-rounded candidate, career person, and part of the industry. So I appreciate, learning about all of that and taking that with me throughout the rest of my day and week and beyond.
Awesome. Well, as I mentioned, I have a whole sheet full of items I could bring up. And I really want to thank you, Valerie, for sharing your thoughts here. I think one that jumped out in the very beginning was when you mentioned, quality is not the police. Quality is a partner. In the work that we do with life sciences, it's so important. Quality is there to serves a very important job, and they're not the police. They're there to make sure that the product is healthy and safe and work with you to make everybody successful. So I highlighted that one. I think the one that really jumped out to me was when you mentioned, I think, the guidance that Daniel O'Day provided, which was that every employee deserves a great leader. And I love that one. I just thought that was really insightful. And I see it in the work you do at Gilead, and I see it. Hopefully we can apply that across the board for everybody here at Entray as well. All right. Any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I want to thank you all this was so enjoyable. It was just so nice to have the conversation and listen to the questions. I too learned from you some of the questions and thinking about things to think about, as I go forward too in my leadership journey. So Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Valerie. Thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to chat with you and hear more about your journey and just so appreciative of you joining us here today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Josie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney.
Right.
Thanks, Josie.
Thanks.
All right, let's wrap this up. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe. That really helps us out. And also, leave us a 5-star rating. That's a big help too. If you'd like, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments as well. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you next time on the Leaders in Life Sciences podcast, powered by Entray Life Sciences Consulting, where people drive results.